Some heroes wield the power of gods, some can fly, warp reality, and bend the very laws of nature to their will. Others turn into gorillas. In one corner, we have DC's Congorilla, who was better known as Congo Bill until he was given a magic ring that allowed him to switch his brain with that of Africa's legendary golden gorilla. In the other corner, we have Marvel's Gorilla Man, who was better known as Ken Hale until he first killed, then became, the Gorilla Man. For Congorilla, his transformation is a gift. For Gorilla Man, his transformation is a literal curse. But when evil threatens, both heroes go ape to save the day. Join us today for a battle we call the Apes of Wrath. Gorilla Man. Like Spider-Man, there's a hyphen between the gorilla and the man, as well as a very tragic origin story. Plagued by nightmares of two gorilla men fighting to the death, every man later changed to soldier of fortune. Ken Hale sets out to find the legendary gorilla men, who are no doubt inspired by the Mangani of the Tarzan books. His search takes him to Africa, where he tracks down a gorilla man. But suddenly, a strange compulsion overtakes him. He throws his rifle aside and attacks the gorilla man with his bare hands. The two engage in a life-or-death wrestling match, and then Ken Hale was a zombie. Then Ken Hale was a gorilla man. Such B-grade Twilight Zone episodes were common in Marvel's 50s anthologies before they settled on publishing giant monster stories. So concluded Ken Hale's origin story in the Marvel anthology Men's Adventure, number 26. That was in 1954. Ken Hale would be left all but forgotten for 34 years. Then in 1978, writer Don Glut would bring Ken Hale back in the pages of What If number 9. In that story, the Avengers of Earth 616 use an extra-dimensional device to peek on a world where the Avengers were formed back in the 1950s from various pre-Fantastic Four characters. Ken Hale joined with Charlie Chan clone Jimmy Woo, Romance Comics character Venus, a Gort-inspired killer robot from Menace number 11 named the Human Robot, the 3D Man, who was actually created by Roy Thomas in 1977 to help retroactively fill the dearth of Marvel heroes in the 1950s, and flash-in-the-pan superhero revival attempt Marvel Boy. But like many what-if concepts, the idea of a team of superheroes assembled from Marvel's Atlas period would eventually be adapted to 616 continuity. In 2006, writer Jeff Parker penned Agents of Atlas, a 6-issue miniseries that revealed that an FBI team very similar to the What If Avengers was active in the 50s under the name Department Zero. The lineup was identical to the What If lineup minus 3D Man. But if we want to be technical, Agents of Atlas wasn't actually Ken Hale's reintroduction to 616 continuity. He had a small role in 2005's Nick Fury's Howling Commandos, but it was so small and the miniseries so bad that many, including myself, just skip it and pretend Agents of Atlas was Ken's big reintroduction. Jeff Parker introduced a few changes when he brought Ken Hale back. Ken was no longer an everyman, but a career soldier of fortune, and his pursuit of the Gorilla Man was spurred not just by nightmares, but by a legend that whoever would kill the Gorilla Man would become immortal. The rumors were true. Ken Hale stopped aging, though his immortality isn't the immune to all harm kind. Ken was also changed from a missing link-type animal to a mountain gorilla. Gorilla, Berengai, Berengai. But the core of the character remained the same. He shot a gorilla, and he became a gorilla. In Agents of Atlas, Ken quits his job as a SHIELD agent to work with his old pal Jimmy Woo, now restored to his physical prime, and their old Department Zero teammates, plus Namora, cousin of the Submariner. The old heroes work to put an end to their old foes, the Atlas Foundation. Think of the Atlas Foundation as Yellow Peril-flavored Hydra. They trace their lineage back to Genghis Khan and think of themselves as the modern Golden Horde. But in a twist that I'm 75% sure Jeff Parker took from old issues of Master of Kung Fu, Jimmy turns out to be the chosen one of the Atlas Foundation. Their decades-long feud has really been to train Jimmy to become the ruler of the Atlas Foundation. And Jimmy decides what the hey, he's got magicians, weird scientists, and a dragon, all fawning at his feet. He might as well make the most of it. Thus, Department Zero became the Agents of Atlas. Think of their gimmick as Green Hornet meets Hydra. Jimmy and friends LARP as supervillains in order to flush out the real bad guys while using the resources of their organization to improve the world. Ken basically LARPed as Jimmy Woo's Monsieur Mala, and he did a pretty good job. Talking monkeys are A-grade supervillain minions, especially when they carry around military hardware. The Agents of Atlas sound pretty cool, right? Unfortunately, Marvel hasn't treated the team well since their 6-issue debut. Jeff Parker had a vision for the team, but this vision was muddled by crossovers and event tie-ins. In 2009, Agents of Atlas got a second 12-issue series, but they also had X-Men vs. Agents of Atlas. Marvel apparently wasn't confident in the Agents of Atlas selling without co-stars. In 2010, Agents of Atlas ran a plot in which Venus went up against Aphrodite. You see, Venus turned out to be a siren, not a goddess, but that's neither here nor there. But this plot wasn't in an actual Agents of Atlas book. Instead, it was spread out between Avengers versus Atlas and the final 4 issues of Incredible Hercules. When you can't even get a dedicated book to tell your stories, you know your characters are in trouble. Later in 2010, the Agents of Atlas got a 3rd series, this time just called Atlas, but it ran for only 5 issues, and Parker was forced to reduce some scenes in the comic to text supplements to fit the page limit. It was clear that getting Agents of Atlas stories out was not a big priority for Marvel, and 2010 would more or less mark the end of the team. In 2016, Gorilla Man joined Deadpool's Mercs for Money team, as if he didn't have a giant conspiracy organization to work for. Then, in 2019, writer Greg Pak revamped the Agents of Atlas as, get this, a Pan-Asian superhero team. Gone was the Golden Age angle, gone was the supervillain LARP angle, gone was everything Jeff Parker built with the characters. And what did we get in return? The rather facile notion that the superheroes of China, Japan, and Korea would all get along as if their cultures were a monolithic unity and histories not filled with brutal race wars. And as for poor Ken, well, he's an African gorilla, not an Asiatic gorilla, so he get kicked off the one team he really belonged on. Later in 2019, Ken would have a minor role in Black Panther Agents of Wakanda, and I'm amazed that no one at Marvel realized the uncomfortable implications of making a literal monkey a high-ranking spec ops agent of an African ethnostate. Is there a place for an old-fashioned gorilla among Marvel's modern priorities? It seems unlikely. Ken was always at his best with his team, and without them, without fellow old-timers to help ease the pain of his immortal existence, he's just a monkey missing his herd. Gorilla Man has decades of experience as a trained operative and gunfighter. He's been an agent of Department Zero, S.H.I.E.L.D., Atlas, Deadpool, and Wakanda. He's skilled with all conventional firearms from machine guns to sniper rifles, as well as exotic weapons like energy projectors capable of blasting apart lava men and jetpacks. One time, he got to weapon test a gun that shoots an anti-machinery beam. I'm not sure it would count as conventional equipment, but there you have it. When missions call for Ken to look human, he has a little hologram watch like Nightcrawler in X-Men Evolution. Gorilla Man is strong, not to the extent of someone like Spider-Man, but he gave Namora a nosebleed by smacking her in the face with a chunk of metal, and later gave Wolverine a nosebleed with a headbutt. He apparently likes to give other superheroes nosebleeds whenever they do the misunderstanding, fight, then team-up bit. But Gorilla Man's best combat advantage is perhaps the worst part of his curse. Just as he was compelled to hunt down and kill the previous Gorilla Man, so too are men compelled to hunt him down. He's gone through so many hunters that he keeps an entire storage unit full of their weapons. Ken Hale is constantly vigilant, constantly alert. If he wasn't, he wouldn't be the Gorilla Man. Someone else would, and Ken Hale would be dead. Gorilla Man has no problem throwing himself in the middle of a crowd of combatants. though it is worth noting that rarely does he not have vastly more powerful companions to watch his behind. But whether this recklessness is born of confidence in his abilities, faith in his companions, or a subconscious death wish isn't clear. Boisterous, experienced, and nigh immortal, the Gorilla Man doesn't fear for his inevitable death. He fears for the poor guy that ends up killing him. Congo Bill. The year is 1940. Superheroes have exploded in popularity since the debut of Superman in 1938, but they have yet to corner the comic book market, and newsstands by and large are filled with genre comics. There are Western comics, crime comics, and jungle comics. The jungle adventure genre is largely an artifact nowadays, though Sheena has a book out currently if I'm not mistaken. But back in the 40s, it was common to find comics full of Tarzan clones, Sheena clones, and for people that preferred their jungle heroes with more clothes, Alan Quatermain clones. Congo Bill was likely DC's attempt at copying the success of King Feature's Jungle Jim, though both characters ultimately owe a debt to Alan Quatermain, the greatest of the Great White Hunters. Though Congo Bill was just known as Congo Bill in his earliest stories, raising the odd possibility that Congo might be his given name, DC would eventually give him the name Bill Glenn Morgan. He first appeared in More Fun Comics, The Spectre's book, in issue 56, and would stay in More Fun Comics until after issue 67. Then Congo Bill switched to Action Comics in issue 37 and stayed there for a whopping 226 stories. Congo Bill stuck by Superman through the end of the Golden Age and the dawn of the Silver Age, through the introduction of Kryptonite, Supergirl, Brainiac, and Kandor, before leaving Action Comics after issue 280 in 1961. In that span of time, DC stopped printing The Flash. They stopped printing Green Lantern, but they kept printing Congo Bill as a testament to his popularity. Congo Bill even got his own film serial in 1948, narrowly beating the Man of Steel to the big screen. If you're familiar with the cliches of the jungle adventure genre, Congo Bill's stories will seem very familiar to you. Though his earliest More Fun Comics adventures had him fight a villain known as the Skull, who can perhaps best be described as, what if the Red Skull woke up in a racial episode of The Twilight Zone? He would quickly fall into the typical jungle hero groove for antagonists. He would encounter exploitative white criminals, quirky scientists in need of guides and common sense, dinosaur valleys, jungle cults, and as soon as the United States entered World War II, lots and lots of Nazis. Congo Bill basically hit all the cliches during his long comic career. He even found King Solomon's mines. How's that for carrying on the legacy of Alan Quatermain? Well, before he became Congorilla, Congo Bill was already a man of two worlds. He was skilled in the ways of natives as well as the ways of white men. Experience was his teacher, but also a Congo native named Suku, who Congo Bill considered the greatest hunter he had ever known. So skilled is Congo Bill as a hunter that he even operated a school for hunters. Bill doesn't like using weapons. He's the kind of hunter that prefers to take animals alive, but that doesn't mean he isn't skilled in their use. He's skilled with a spear and assegai, and can throw a spear with enough accuracy, power, and speed to pin a sacred jungle drum to a tree mid-fall. You see, it would curse the village if it touched the ground. Touching the ground is desecration, but not being speared to a tree. I don't know, man, Congolese, what are you gonna do? During an adventure in South America, Bill picked up how to use bolas. Bill is so good with a knife that he's able to fight a leopard hand-to-hand and not only win, but win without a scratch. But it's with firearms that Bill really shines. He can shoot the rifle out of a Japanese infantryman's hands with a pistol, and with a rifle, he can bullseye a tossed coin. And look at this. This is a common scene in jungle adventure stories. An animal lunges at someone and the hero blows them away with a hair trigger. Congo Bill has killed many leopards and lions mid-pounce. But check this feat out from Action Comics 246. Congo Bill's rifle has been tampered with. When the leaping leopard is about a foot away from him, Congo Bill realizes what's wrong. He then grabs the leopard by the throat with one hand, tosses it back, then cracks its skull open with the butt of his rifle. That's a smooth feat. That's a feat worthy of Tarzan himself. Yes, sir, Congo Bill is a fast and tough customer. He's fast enough to dodge point-blank gunfire, but that's a fairly common ability for pulp-level heroes. More impressive to me is that he's able to not only pull off the crocodile run feat from Live and Let Die, the best Bond film by the way, but help someone else do it at the same time. Eat your heart out, James. Bill is also tough enough to take a bullet and keep on fighting. He's also durable enough to wrestle with a legendary white lion for, get this, 20 minutes straight. But more important than his physical abilities is his mind. Keep that in mind for later. See what I did there? Anyway, Congo Bill is an ace pilot and is so good with wartime planes that he briefly joined the Fighting Tigers. My headcanon also has him do some time with the Blackhawks. He also knows more than a little about engineering. In Action Comics 209, he designs a giant sail-powered wagon to help a man transport cargo over a Central African desert. But his greatest skill is, unsurprisingly, his outdoorsmanship. Congo Bill is a master of using the environment to his advantage and creating distractions. All Congo Bill needs to get beasts or men to look the other way just long enough is a flashlight. But he can also make do with some flowers. He's also skilled in making traps, such as a gourd trap for gorillas. Even when all Bill has is some donkeys and milk cans, he somehow makes it all work. Such is Congo Bill's outdoorsmanship that in Congo Bill 3, he outwitted and defeated an armed huntsman without any supplies, and in Congo Bill 7, he leads a successful safari without any supplies. He keeps everyone so comfortable and safe just by using the land that no one realizes how much danger they were in until the end of the story. Bill is also extremely amicable. He's as good at making friends as Batman is bad. He's befriended all the tribes of the Congo, which given the perpetual ethnic strife in the region, is a little like being on good terms with every single faction in Fallout. It's possible in theory, but only in theory. He's on such good terms with the gauchos of Argentina that they call him Miguel. I don't know why they call him Miguel, but they do. Out of all the weird things related to Congo Bill, the gauchos calling him Miguel is the weirdest to me. Why Miguel? Why? We may never understand. Do you think the writer put in Miguel knowing that 80 years in the future, some internet guy would obsess over it? Talk about long-term planning. Anyway, we're going to be skipping a few decades here, but in 2016, he became the mentor of Damage, DC's Call of Duty flavored Hulk clone. You have to have an incredibly high charisma score to befriend Call of Duty Hulk. Congo Bill is ultimately, at this point in his history, just a man, but he's a man of many talents, many experiences, and many friends. Speaking of his friends, his first companion way back in More Fun Comics, O'Toole the Chimp. But O'Toole wouldn't last long before being quietly forgotten. Maybe a crocodile got him? Then he palled around with Dr. James Kent, who I like to think of as Superman's uncle, and Sheila Hanlon, a love interest he met in a valley full of dinosaurs. But the two didn't last much longer than O'Toole. For a huge chunk of his history, Congo Bill was a solo act. But then, in Action Comics 191, Congo Bill met his Robin, a jungle boy named Janyu who could talk to animals, most often his chimpanzee friend Chota and his elephant friend Bombo. Janyu would mark an important turning point in Congo Bill stories. Immediately after his introduction, stories were about what you would expect. Janyu gets kidnapped. Janyu has to take care of Congo Bill after he comes down with jungle fever. Congo Bill helps Janyu with his first crush. You get the idea. But after a brief period of Janyu-focused stories, the stories became weirder and more interesting. There's the aforementioned Wagon Landship story in Action Comics 209. In Action Comics 220, Congo Bill stumbles upon a missing herd of space dinosaurs left by space cowboys. DC, please, for the love of God, revisit this idea. I need a comic about space cowboys running a space dinosaur drive across the stars. In Action Comics 237, Congo Bill has to find a way to sabotage a mobile jungle fortress because the way it takes down animals with no effort is against Bill's ideals of honorable sportsmanship. In Action Comics, 240 Congo Bill and Janyu are shrunk down to the size of insects. This wouldn't be the last time Congo Bill would go Ant-Man, but more on that later. In Action Comics, 242, Congo Bill foils an alien invasion by a lone energy creature by tricking it into coming in contact with ice, its weakness. But the alien pulls a Raditz and warns that there are more aliens, 5 to be precise, and that they know he's failed and are coming to conquer the world. Sure enough, in the next issue, these 5 aliens show up, and they're themed around the 5 senses. Just look at this page. It's incredible. This is why I love comics. It's Congo Bill versus the Primevals from Gao Gai Gar. And Congo Bill manages to defeat these aliens by... Actually, no, I'm not going to tell you how Congo Bill defeated them. This story is worth a look. Go check it out. It says a lot that in 245, Congo Bill has to hunt down super animals, including a hippo with a flamethrower mouth, and that story still isn't as gleefully weird as the alien invasion. If you want to get into Congo Bill stories, start reading them after Janyu shows up. That's when the stories get weird. And in this batch of weird stories, we start to see signs of Congorilla. In Congo Bill 1, Congo Bill meets a creature called the Golden Gorilla in a story more than a little reminiscent of King Kong. The Golden Gorilla gets captured, but he befriends Janyu, who reveals that the Golden Gorilla is named Bogadu, and Janyu and Congo Bill spring him. In Action Comics 224, another Golden Gorilla shows up. Is this the same Golden Gorilla as Bogadu? It's hard to say. He clearly likes Congo Bill, because he saves his life several times like a guardian angel. But if he is supposed to be Bogadu, then he's far smaller than he used to be. In Action Comics 228, Congo Bill encounters a seemingly intelligent gorilla named Congorilla, but note that his name is spelt with a K instead of a C. The gorilla's intelligence, however, is just the result of a conman's illusion. So we have several elements buzzing around the head of the writer. We have a golden gorilla. We have an ape that protects Congo Bill with his strength. And we have a seemingly intelligent gorilla. Put them all together and what do you get? You get the origin of Congorilla in Action Comics 248. After risking his life to save his witch doctor friend Kawolo, the mortally wounded Kawolo gifts Congo Bill a magic ring which, when rubbed, will switch his mind with the Golden Gorilla, who wears the ring's twin. Kawolo was never seen before this origin story, though I like to think that he was this guy from Action Comics 38. Congo Bill believes the ring is superstition, because even after the alien invasion thing, a magic ring that switches your mind with a gorilla sounds really, really weird. And it is pretty damn weird when you think about it. It's not a ring that gives you the strength of a gorilla or turns you into a gorilla. It's a ring that switches your brain with a gorilla, as in it's in your body while you're brachiating around. When Congo Bill is trapped inside a cave, he thinks what the hell, he might as well try the ring, and a new DC legend is born. Gorilla plus Congo Bill. Congorilla. And if you're wondering how Bill got around the whole "an ape is inside my body" bit, he used a variety of methods. He would tie himself up, lock himself in a cage, or most often drug himself with sleeping pills. Let's talk a little bit about the magic ring before we get into Congorilla's powers. First, it's not unique. An evil criminal got his hands on a similar ring that allowed him to switch bodies with a lion. Yeah, we got a Lion Man versus Gorilla Man showdown in Adventure Comics. The ring also works for anyone, not just Congo Bill. Janyu and Jimmy Olsen have both taken turns piloting the Golden Gorilla. The ring is not bound to the Golden Gorilla. If the Golden Gorilla's ring is placed on another animal, Congo Bill will switch with that animal. So there's a hook for a potential crossover with Rex the Wonder Dog. It is commonly said in stories that there's an hour-long cooldown between switches, but some stories ignore this. When Congorilla was abducted by aliens in World's Finest 149, he remarked that if worse came to worse, he could get out of there in an instant and leave the gorilla to die in his place. Janu shouldn't have to lose his dad a second time. But the weirdest element of the ring is the implication that it's alien technology, not magic. Because in World's Finest 149, he came across an alien Congorilla as an alien being that switched his mind with an alien ape using a ring. My take? I think Bill's ring is both alien and magical. An alien race experimented with the red, and the ring is what they came up with. Hey, why should it only be humans that get to play around with DC's mystic stuff? Now let's talk about some cool feats. Congo Bill, as Congorilla, suffers no drawbacks outside looking like a big golden gorilla. It's a general upgrade. Though gorillas are generally far less dexterous than humans, this doesn't apply to the golden gorilla. If anything, Bill's dexterity improves as Congorilla. He's dexterous enough to, within seconds, create realistic decoys out of snow and mud. He can not only pick up and hurl cannonballs, but throw them accurately into cannon barrels to foul them up. During his fight with the aforementioned Super Lion in Adventure Comics 283, he was able to construct a working kite and glider in seconds while evading the lion's attacks. He can catch a live grenade and then throw it back. But his best agility feat comes from Action Comics 249. The bad guys try to run Congorilla over with a bulldozer, so what does Congorilla do in the split second he has before the bulldozer hits? He detonates just enough sticks of dynamite to make a hole so that he'll vanish beneath the bulldozer. Insane! But still somehow not as insane was what I'm about to tell you. Congorilla can even get this, perform surgery. He performed surgery twice with big gorilla hands and with no supplies outside first aid kits. I'm not going to say Congorilla is the greatest surgeon in DC, because that's Dr. Midnight, but I'd rank him above Thomas Wayne. Sorry, Batman. His marksmanship doesn't suffer as Congorilla, though he rarely used firearms as Congorilla. During his stint on the Justice League, and yes, Congorilla has Justice League membership, more on that later, he was chosen to operate a Blue Lantern sniper rifle. And add being a sharp dresser to the list of his skills because Congorilla puts on the Ritz better than Frankenstein's monster. I wonder if Alan Moore was influenced by Congorilla when he designed Mr. Hyde for League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Bill's amiability is as negatively impacted as his dexterity, but this should come as no surprise. Who doesn't love an intelligent monkey? Godzilla will never have the face energy of King Kong. That's just a fact. As Congorilla, he befriended the legendary Abominable Snowman. So this is why Jinx was an Ice-type Pokémon. But while Congorilla has skills, his main asset is his brute strength in combination with his mind. In terms of brute power, Congorilla can spin a car with a wave of his hand. He can rip up a fire hydrant and rip down a steel tower. He can tow a submarine, and Cold War subs can weigh between 4,000 and 8,000 tons. He can even tow a plane, and we're not talking about a little Cessna, we're talking something more like a 747, and those can weigh over 400,000 tons. In terms of brute power in combination with his mind, he can use a giant bell and jeep as a shield. How very Hulk ultimate destruction. I missed that game. He can use his feet to replace the motor of a paddle steamer. He can cause a cave-in to take the floor away from enemies. And he can do the Spider-Man slingshot maneuver, but with trees instead of webs. Congorilla's big weakness is that his durability isn't in keeping with his strength. He is concerned about getting shot, so it's likely he isn't bulletproof, and prolonged activity in the Arctic gave him a cold. But that's not to say that he's a wimp. He was able to endure a rain of kryptonite meteors drawn to Earth by a magnet, and I'm sure some power scaler out there can swank the feet to make him nuke-proof or something because meteors are fast. Hey, if the swankers are willing to swank JoJo characters off little meteors, why not Congo characters? Action Comics 280 would be Congorilla's last appearance in Action Comics for 23 years and marked the end of a long, long run on the book. As a tip of the hat to the character, DC had him take a bow with none other than the Man of Steel himself in a weird, whimsical story. When Brainiac bottles Superman and his friends in the Congo, yeah, just roll with it. Who should walk in on the scene but Congorilla? Confused as to why a golden gorilla would come out of nowhere, but deciding that he could always use another pet monkey, Brainiac bottles Congorilla with everyone else. But Congorilla's strength isn't diminished by the shrinking process. I guess it might have something to do with the magic nature of the ring or something. But anyway, Congorilla is able to free Superman and help him defeat Brainiac. Action Comics 280 wasn't the best Congorilla story, but it was a cute way to send the character off. A coda of sorts would be supplied in 1980 in the Whatever Happened to backup feature of DC Comics Presents. In issue 27, it was revealed that Congo Bill and Janyu became industrialists, helping to modernize Africa. That does track when you think about it. Congo Bill would know where best to build bridges and wells to help the most people, and he probably amassed quite a fortune guiding scientists and eccentrics through the jungle. Following that, Congo Bill would fade and become forgotten, which made him perfect to join the Forgotten Heroes in 1985. The Forgotten Heroes were, as their name implies, a group made up of obscure and forgotten DC characters. You better believe I'm going to be making more videos on their roster. Congorilla would fight alongside them to save the universe twice before the crisis, teaming up with his old friend Superman both times. You know that Big Bang Pyramid Feats Superman has? It comes from the last Forgotten Heroes story, and that concludes the history of Congo Bill, the pre-crisis Congo Bill. As with many characters, writers were much kinder to Congo Bill before the crisis than after it. If only we could end his history here, with Congo Bill as an industrial benefactor who sometimes helps the Forgotten Heroes. But we cannot, unfortunately. We must talk about the bad times, though briefly. The bad times for Congo Bill start with Alan Moore in Swamp Thing Annual 2. In it, it's revealed that Congo Bill is a burned-out old man being pressured by a spoiled yuppie Janyu to return to the jungle so he and his friends can make a television show out of it. Congo Bill also apparently killed someone as Congorilla and hid it from the cops. Why, Alan, why? He never had a problem controlling the golden gorilla's body before. Oh my god, how did things get so dark so fast? At the end of the story, Congo Bill decides to live in the jungle as Congorilla with the golden gorilla running around inside his body. And oh god, why it's so weird and unnecessary and just, why? Then Steve Englehart writes a Congorilla mini where Janyu turns evil and takes over the golden gorilla's body, and Congo Bill has to kill him, and no, the darkness won't stop. But hey, at least this mini clarified Congorilla's resistance. He can tank small arms fire, but not high-powered rifle fire. So there's that, whatever that counts for. Then there was the Congo Bill Vertigo story, where Congo Bill goes full Heart of Darkness and becomes a crazy jungle hermit, and oh, can it just end? No, it cannot. Are you familiar with Cry of Justice? It was one of the worst eras for DC Comics. DC doubled down on identity crisis edginess, and everyone would rather pretend it never happened. Well, Congorilla was connected to Cry for Justice. It was revealed that Bill's old body died, and presumably took the golden gorilla's mind with it, so Bill is stuck as Congorilla living among his gorilla friends. But wouldn't you know it? They all get killed by hunters, and this makes Congorilla cry for justice. We're DC. We gotta cry for justice. You want some happiness? You want to see a happy little monkey? Tough. DC stands for dead children, dead gorilla children. Congorilla joins the Justice League and inexplicably gains a huge strength boost and the ability to change his size. While I appreciate that this provides a reason for Bogadoo to be the golden gorilla, I don't like the idea of Bill just getting new powers out of the blue. Look at that! He held up all of Hoover Dam. Imagine if that was a Fallout mod. But don't worry. I'm not going to give Bill his cry for justice powers. It wouldn't make a fair fight. There is a light at the end of this tunnel. Bill's appearance and damage was actually very respectful to the character and restored his human body. I don't even care that there's no explanation for it. In fact, I don't want an explanation. God bless you, Robert Venditti. I think damage sucks eggs, but God bless you. In fact, if you could bring Janyu back from the dead and not explain it as well, that would be peachy. Also, Congorilla is stupidly powerful here. He's the warden of DC's Monster Island clone, and literally clapped Call of Duty Hulk. But don't worry, I'm not giving Bill this level of power in this fight. Who would have thought that one day Congo Bill would be slapping down Hulk-level opponents? You've come a long way, Bill. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but Call of Duty Hulk gave me hope that maybe there's a place for Congo Bill in modern DC. Maybe the next time he shows up, it'll be at Janyu's wedding and he'll get to have adventures with the forgotten heroes again. Maybe the next time he shows up, he won't blow his head off with his old rifle because, I don't know, he saw his dark multiverse self was Gorilla Grodd plus Mobutu or something. But if he does, I really won't be surprised. So who wins? I give the fight to Congorilla. While Gorilla Man has the greater general combat experience and better gear, that's where his advantages end. Let's talk about the biggest advantage Congorilla has, his super strength. If Congorilla closes the gap, there's no question he wins. Gorilla Man never towed a sub, let alone a passenger plane. Of course, Ken's jetpack means he can keep out of Congorilla's reach while peppering him with machine gun fire. Congorilla can't reach him in that case, barring some lucky super leaping, and while Congorilla may be bullet resistant, he's not bulletproof. But that's where Congo Bill comes in clutch for Congorilla. While Bill doesn't typically use weapons as Congorilla, there's really no reason he can't take his gear from his human body, and while Bill's gear isn't as impressive as Ken's, he's far more skilled in their use given his history of quick draw and bullseye feats. That turns Ken's jetpack into a liability. It puts him out of reach of Congorilla's arms, but at the cost of making him a very big target. There's also the matter of Congo Bill's outdoorsmanship. He's an ace at controlling the environment through trickery, subterfuge, and building tools in an instant like a cartoon character. While Ken is experienced and has certainly seen plenty of tricks in his line of work, he's also aggressive and irascible. He probably wouldn't fall for every one of Congo Bill's tricks, but he only has to fall for one to cost him the fight. In the end, it's not so much Congorilla that beats Gorilla Man as it is the legendary hunter Congo Bill, which when you think about it is appropriate. How did the last Gorilla Man go down? Ken Hale hunted him. Here's how I see the fight going. We open with Ken stalking through a jungle, 2 machine guns in his arms. Suddenly, there's a rustle of motion from the tree canopy, and Ken opens fire. His guns don't shoot bullets, but darts instead, visually communicating that this is a friendly sort of fight, not a lethal one. "Where's your golden butt hiding?" Gorilla Man mumbles to himself as he realizes he missed his target. He tracks the canopy with his eyes. The camera pulls back to show Congorilla in a tree behind Gorilla Man. He uses a lariat to lasso another tree and pulls. Ken shoots at the motion. Then, with his super strength, Bill pulls the tree right on top of Ken. Cut to Ken, wiggling his way out from underneath the tree. He's dropped one of his guns, but he's still got hold of one of them. He spots his dropped gun and goes for it, but the gun is suddenly ran through with a spear. Ken looks in the direction of the thrown spear and smirks as he spots Congo Bill. Ken opens fire, but Bill swings down to earth, uproots the tree he just swung down from, and swings it at Ken. Ken bounds over the tree as it swings underneath him. But as he lands, a lariat snaps around his gun and pulls it away. "Smooth moves, old man," Ken says, "but you really should update your arsenal." Ken then presses a button on his belt, spawning an Atlas jetpack. Ken rockets into the air, knocking Congorilla off him. 4 rifles fall from the jetpack, and Ken catches them with his hands and feet. He's quad-wielding now. A jetpack that ejects 4 rifles isn't from any of Gorilla Man's stories, but it really should be. Ken opens fire, and Bill scrambles for cover. Ken has the advantage now. Bill ducks behind a boulder, then picks the boulder up first to use as a shield, as Ken climbs higher into the air to adjust his aim, and then as a thrown weapon. Ken nimbly flies out of the way, but as he gets the incoming rock out of his vision, he sees Congorilla's spear stab through the side of his jetpack. As the jetpack starts to malfunction, Ken works to get the spear out. When he does, and his jetpack rights itself, he notices that Bill has vanished. "More of this Predator stuff?" Ken asks. "Ha! No thanks!" Ken produces a high-tech bomb from his jetpack and tosses it. "Can't use the jungle for cover when there's no jungle," Ken shouts. Now it's not an actual bomb, but it's a fancy sci-fi paint bomb. A 360-degree red light turns a portion of the jungle bright red. "I gotta hand it to you, Bob," Ken mutters to himself. "That looks cooler than the real thing." I thought it would be nice to sneak in a reference to Gorilla Man's teammate Marvel Boy. We cut to Congo Bill emerging from the hole he dug for himself. He bounds over to a buried rifle cache he set up in preparation. Retrieving his rifle, he fires several darts at Ken's jetpack, disabling it. As he falls, Ken acrobatically detaches himself from his jetpack, aims a shot as he falls, and blasts Congorilla's own rifle out of his hands. Then, with a smirk, Ken grasps a tree branch on the way down. But Congorilla grabs two large palm branches and waves them to create an obscuring sandstorm. "Damn!" Ken curses as he loses sight of Congorilla once again. "Fight him in the jungle," Jimmy said. "You're both apes," Jimmy said. "It'll be fair," Jimmy said. Then Ken notices the tree is shaking. Congorilla has picked up the entire tree, Gorilla Man included. Ken aims a shot, but before he can squeeze the trigger, he's smashed beneath yet another tree. "I'm starting to hate trees," Ken mutters as he bursts his way through the bark, hands empty. He finds himself facing Congorilla, who is beating his chest challengingly. "Okay," Ken says. "You want to do it like this? Fine with me. Let's go ape." Gorilla Man brawls with Congorilla, but it's quickly apparent that Ken isn't getting the best of the engagement. Ken looks like he's done, but he suddenly reaches beneath the fur on one of his arms, and from a black camouflage holster draws a small handgun. This is another invention of mine that, while not a canon part of Ken's arsenal, feels very much like something he could use. Ken empties the clip of darts into Congorilla, who falls over, sound asleep. "Something I learned from Jimmy Woo," Ken says. "Always keep a backup handy and out of sight." But Gorilla Man's victory is short-lived as the camera pulls back to show that he's in the crosshairs of a rifle. Ken grimaces as he's riddled with darts. He plucks one out, wobbles back and forth, mutters, "Oh, the stupid ring. Well, my Jimmy can still beat up your Jimmy." And he falls over. And you know what? It is rather funny that Congorilla and Gorilla Man ended up being friends to two very different Jimmies. We then cut over to the winner of the fight, Congo Bill. "Couldn't have said it better myself, Mr. Hale," he says. "Game, set, and match." Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe.